Hello, I'm Dr. Michael Kessler from Global Health Solutions, and I want to kind of introduce you today to the HeartQuest. So this is kind of a little introduction, and we're going to do several of these. This is just the first series. And when we talk about HeartQuest, it's really a functional evaluation. And it's really looking at the interconnected multiple systems of the body. And we'll get into that and show you what systems we're talking about. But it's easy to interpret. Interpretation goes way beyond heart rate variability. So it has the component in this system of being able to do heart rate variability at a very sophisticated level, but it's looking at a lot more. It gives you a very clear look at the patient's adaptive capabilities, and we're going to talk about that. It's really super easy to use. And the patients and healthcare providers just love the HeartQuest. We have over 500, maybe 600 out there right now, and it's growing. And we'll talk to you about why that is. So again, why do you need the HeartQuest? Why would you want one of these? Well, it shows the patient that your treatment and therapies are effective. It gives a comprehensive view of the interconnected systems such as the autonomic nervous system, neurohormonal system, which is your HPA axis, meridians from Chinese medicine, and how they all work together in a very specific corridor for optimal health. It looks at indicators of excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitter balance, indications of brain toxicity, inflammation, and thyroid function. Indications of adrenal balance between cortisol and DHEA gives us an idea about that. Has all the research scientific parameters found in traditional HRV. It's an amazing tool for patient compliance and management, and most of the practitioners out there who are using it will tell you that. So what we're really looking at when we look at the HeartQuest is how well some patient is going to respond to multiple stressors, and who today is not being affected by multiple stressors. I mean, when they come in our office, what are we looking at? They're coming in with emotional stress, maybe relationship things are going on, financial things are going on, and maybe they have pain. So they have physical stress, chronic pain, maybe they have toxic stress, which almost everybody who walks in today has some form of environmental toxins because of the world that we live in today, for either whether it's bisphenol A or we have glyphosate toxicity or whatever it is, they're definitely putting a downward force on our body's physiology. And food sensitivities and allergies, diets that are suboptimal in macro and micronutrients, electromagnetic stress from cell phones, microwaves and cell towers, genetic mutations affecting optimal function. And the reason I put the genetic mutations in is because I do a lot of work looking at the person's, my patient's genetic mutations. So maybe I can see that, okay, they have homozygous from both parents mutations with gluten. And maybe they have homozygous mutations where they can't break down histamine. And so maybe that's causing some inflammatory things going on, the combination that's creating a leaky gut and those kind of problems. And a lot of these folks, they can't even make their protective detoxification molecules. They can't make glutathione, or they can't make SOD or catalase. And they have problems making maybe nitric oxide to protect their arteries. Whatever it is, we can look at those genetic mutations. And what I'm finding is as I correct them, the HeartQuest is starting to improve as well because I'm working on multiple levels. This is our team. I'm Dr. Michael Kessler, and I've been practicing since probably 1985. And I've been doing, I'm a chiropractor, but I've been doing a lot of functional medicine and something called German biological medicine for quite a long time. And this is Dr. Javdat Kerimov on the right here, and he's an MD from Russia, and he's an NMD here in the United States. I got his NMD in Portland, Oregon, where he now lives. And he's also one of the main designers and innovators of this technology. And the one who runs this company is Dr. Sandra Becchetti. And she makes sure that everything is running smoothly. She's a DC and also trained in Chinese medicine and is our corporate coordinator. So what we're really looking at is how well somebody can adapt. And so I like to read this quote from Charles Darwin. It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one most adaptable to change. Which takes me to this really cool project here called the $1 million prize, the Palo Alto Longevity Prize, which is taking several top scientists, these teams from all over the world, and they're competing in this longevity project. So it says here, Palo Alto Longevity Prize asks if the aging code can be cracked. The answer lies in preventing the unraveling of homeostatic capacity, which I'm going to talk about in just 1 minute what that means. But all the teams competing are using heart rate variability as the biomarker in this contest. And what they're saying is that heart rate variability, which is a component of the HeartQuest, may be the best biomarker to living longer and increasing longevity. So it says here, homeostatic capacity and adaptability is the key to health and longevity. Physiologic mechanisms work optimally within a dynamic range. So what is that? What are they saying here? So we look at all these little things that look like circuit boards, and so one of them may represent the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. We know that system has to be able to go back and forth depending on the needs of the body within a very specific corridor, a specific range. And we also have these other corridors here that work within a very specific range, like the regulation of our blood pressure, the aldosterone control, or the angiotensin control, or our blood sugar control regulation. So all these work within that range, and the systems fail to correct as we age. Normally, when you're young, you can go outside those corridors or those ranges and be able to come back in. But as we get older, the homeostatic capacity starts to erode. So then instead of the blood pressure being regulated correctly and being able to come back into normal range, it doesn't do that. Or the blood sugar doesn't come back, the glucose doesn't come back, and those regulation systems are not working as optimally anymore. And maybe our immune system starts to shift to more of a Th2 bias, and so we have immune problems. And so when we're younger, we have that adaptive capability, and we start to lose that, and we can't self-correct. That's the main thing. We can't self-correct. So when we look at the HeartQuest, it gives us a really good indication of how well we can adapt and self-correct so we can be healthy, right? So when I look at the HeartQuest is a functional evaluation, dealing with the patient's ability to adapt to various forms of stress within a very specific corridor and have the vitality to self-correct again. And so when we have these stressors here, whether that's physical stress, emotional stress, or toxicity, it creates this downward force, this distress, and if our internal resistance starts to weaken, we end up with signs and symptoms. And if we ignore those signs and symptoms and we don't deal with the causal factors, we end up with degeneration. Degeneration will continue to ensue. And so most of us, as we know, who deal with the comprehensive type of medicine, or whether we're an acupuncturist or nutritionist or a functional medicine doc, whatever it is that you do, most of us know we have to deal with these issues up here, the causal factors. And when we deal with those causal factors on the HeartQuest, we're going to be able to see the direction that that patient's health is going. And hopefully when we do those things, the health is going in this direction, from recycling, well, not recycling because that's death, but from whether it's dysfunction and disease back up to our health potential. So HeartQuest shows us which direction the patient is moving from the optimal health potential to the other end of the equation. So where did this all come from? Well, this all came from full body analysis, including heart rate variability, initiated in 1968 by the USSR Navy. So they were using this to check the health of these poor submariners who are in this tin can here and tracking their health. And many top scientists worked on this project. A lot of them were mathematicians, which I'll show you in just a minute. And this technology expanded out and kept improving into the space program, into sports medicine, into the hospitals, and it's still expanding today because we've taken this technology and we've been working with it and improving it. Here's one of the top mathematicians who was working on this, Yuri Smirnov, one of the scientists. This is what he says. Each change in the rhythm of the heart represents a reflection in changes in other organs and regulatory systems. So what does this sound like? How about Chinese pulse diagnosis? So I don't know how many of you have ever had this done. I had this done by a very famous Ayurvedic doctor, and it was amazing what he told me about my whole body, because it was a reflection of what was going on with the rest of my body. But today we can do it objectively with an EKG. We can get the information from the heart rhythms with, again, objectively with an EKG, and that would be the HeartQuest. So we can get a reflection here of what's going on with the rest of the body. And that's what they did. So really, what is inside the HeartQuest? I'll just give you a quick rundown here. So we got the neural dynamic coding, and that's a very specific mathematical algorithm that the Russians used. Soviet scientists and physicists looked at the repeating patterns in nature, including the repeating patterns in the QRST complex of the heart. And that actually is also called fractal neural dynamic coding. And when out of these ranges, health would be affected in specific systems. So one of the things that we look at on the first page of the HeartQuest is something called A, B, C, and D. A has to do with cardiovascular adaptation. B has to do with the autonomic nervous system's ability to regulate. C has to do with the HPA axis. And D has to do with the psycho-emotional state. And that came from this mathematical calculating that has to do with fractal neural dynamic coding, these repeating patterns, looking at the heart rhythms. Then we also have the classical heart rate variability. And heart rate variability and its connection to the autonomic nervous system gives indications of the patient's adaptive capabilities, right? We also have the frequency spectral analysis. So research on the frequency spectrum using a technique called fast Fourier transform tells us about the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system, and again, the neurohormonal system, which is the HPA axis, and also the meridian status from Chinese medicine and more. So we break this down into high frequency, low frequency, and very low frequency. And those are also in the medical literature. And like high frequency is going to represent the parasympathetic nervous system, and low frequency, the sympathetic nervous system, for example. And the very low frequency is going to represent the HPA axis and more. We also can decode the brain via the heart, and the heart affects the brain. And HeartMath did a lot of research on that. And we use something called a spline map to give us indications of brain activity from the heart. And then again, Dr. Karamov has expanded this technology to give us information on minerals, neurotransmitters, hormones, inflammation, thyroid, and more. The beautiful thing about this, it's reproducible. So a lot of us who've played around with EAV and a lot of energetic testing, this is not an energetic test per se. It is in some way, but it's an EKG and it's reproducible. And you'll be able to see that patient's pattern. And you'll be able to see consistently how that pattern is changing as you treat that patient. So underneath the hood of the machine, we have this on the last page. We have all the research parameters that are classical in heart rate variability. And they're just the kind of the plain statistical numbers that we look at in science. But it's kind of a little bit boring, and the patients can't relate to it, and neither can the practitioners, right? So the plain numbers are converted to a visual picture, so we can get a nice visual of what's really going on. So this is the first in the series, and we're going to go much deeper. And I want to thank you again for listening. And if you want to contact us to learn more, you could contact Global Health Solutions, LLC, and you contact myself. I'm Dr. Michael Kessler at 415-646-112, or Dr. Javdat Karamov at 1-503-901-8336. And our company is called Global Health Solutions. And if you have any questions, please give us a call. I want to thank you.